Sorry.
Lights, camera.
Guys talk about engineering and all, so we get excited.
Hey, Spencer.
Hello.
It's funny, Jeff, I had a note that said it was a mandatory in-person meeting tonight.
I did as well. Something about an open house.
Yeah,
It has to stay. Where did you read that?
it was in our last message.
All right, welcome everybody. I am going to call the August 27th, 2025 meeting of the Lacey Planning Commission to order. We have 6 members here. We are missing Tanya,
Yeah,
Gail. Yep. So we do have a quorum. Jennifer, please read the land acknowledgement for us.
We, the city of Lacey, are on the ancestral land of the tribal people of the Treaty of the Medicine Creek, including the Nisqually Indian tribe and Squaxin Island tribe. We acknowledge and remember those tribal people not recognized today who were absorbed or relocated into other tribes for survival. We recognize the ancestors and their descendants who are still here. We recognize and respect the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek as the traditional stewards of this land since time immemorial, and their role today in taking care of these lands in perpetuity. We recognize and have the responsibility to call attention to the histories of dispossession, forced removal, and abridged treaty rights that allowed our nation, state, and city to develop as they have today. We recommend that community members read the Medicine Creek Treaty of 1854.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next thing I'd be looking for a motion on the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as written.
second.
Okay, seconded by Kieran. All those in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. And then the minutes, we need action on the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Second.
Judy. It was Judy and Elliot. They were in a tie. I'll let you say it.
So
Okay.
Elliot and then Judy.
Moved and seconded to approve the August 13 minutes. All those in favor? Awesome. Okay, we do not have any members of the public at all. Any commission member reports tonight? Okay, Sarah, anything from the department?
The department report. Ryan is absent this week. He's in Canada.
Yep, which we knew.
Is he taking a vacation?
Okay, we have no public hearing, so this jumps us right into new business, and Sarah is going to tell us about current planning and self-guided development.
Self-guided development tour.
And is this meant to be the substitute for the bus tour?
It is.
Okay.
It is. So for those of you who have been around long enough, start the slideshow. You'll know that generally on an annual basis, we do a joint planning commission city council bus tour, generally in August, September timeframe, where we tour, everybody gets together on an intercity transit bus and we go and tour the city for new development. In lieu of that, this year, we've put together a self-guided driving tour. Really what it comes down to is timing. This year, you guys have been really busy with the comprehensive plan, getting on council schedules has been difficult. So this is really a quick tour that we put together that you can do on your own. But prior to me sending out the links that we've provided with the driving route, I thought I'd take you through in person what you'll look at as you follow the tour. So we'll go ahead and get started. And I did print out a large copy of the map that you can take with you, although we have driving instructions that you can just there's 3 different ones. I'll get to that kind of at the end, but that you can just plug into your Google Maps and it will, you can put it on your car if you have Apple AirPlay or Google Play on your car and it will navigate the route for you as well.
I much prefer a paper map.
Do you?
Added the
Yes.
instructions to the agenda after it's entered, so if you want to find it, it's online.
Yes, and it's in the agenda, so you should have that. And then we can also email out the links as well, so you can have them in your planning commission.
Just let me know if you guys want me to do that.
Yeah,
Google sheet.
and Erin, if you could,
You want me to just do that?
email the slides for us.
It's
Can you do
too
that?
big.
Okay.
Oh, that's the case.
So it should be in, did you
I
attach
did
it to
ask
the?
I mean, it's in our agenda, yes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was just thinking have it separate would be,
You can probably download it
okay,
to your phone
Okay.
or your device
okay.
from the agenda. If not, let me know and we'll figure something out.
We'll figure it
Okay.
out. I can maybe do each page too. We'll
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we'll go ahead and get started. And we're gonna just start, I've included a copy of the map with the slides for the development. We're gonna start at Lacey City Hall. We're gonna start and end at Lacey City Hall, which is what your instructions and the driving tour will start with as well, and just start with the Lacey Midtown area, go all the way down Carpenter Road before we get back to Lacey City Hall. So we're gonna start, like I said, in Lacey Midtown. This is the Yard project, and this is a pretty exciting project that is brought to us also by MJR Development as a means to provide some additional recreational opportunities for their new residents that are gonna be occupying Lacey Midtown as a result of the new residential development that's taken place. This is at 7th and College. If you remember, there are plans in the future to put a roundabout at 7th and College to facilitate access to Lacey Midtown, as well as to provide pedestrian access from St. Martin's University and East College Street into Lacey Midtown. So we'll have an entryway into Lacey Midtown at 7th and College with a roundabout. And then on either side of 7th Avenue, MJR is planning what's called, again, the Yard. And this is a construction of a 2,500 square foot tap room with open space surrounding the tap room, trees. They'll have fire pits, they'll have outdoor activities on one side of 7th Avenue. And then across the street on the other side, immediately adjacent to the bank, they plan on having pickleball courts, volleyball courts, some sort of outdoor activity. This will be open to the public, but really serves as an additional recreational opportunity for residents of Midtown, visitors of Midtown, or the students of St. Martin's, South Puget Sound Community College, people who want to get out and enjoy Lacey Midtown. The second stop on our tour is 7th Avenue Apartments, and the Yard is gonna serve these folks. This is construction of, this is a project that's been in the works for a long time. It includes construction of 2 5-story apartment buildings with 376 residential units. The north building will include about 18,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space. Subgrade parking, this parcel where it will be constructed, this is a parking lot right now, so it's a underutilized parking field at this point that's going to be converted to residential structures. We have permits in for the south building at this point. The north building, they're holding off on that for just a little while to see how it work on the south building, or how the south building leases up. The south building includes 179 apartment units. And we anticipate issuing those permits, or they're about ready to be picked up. We anticipate them picking up the permits and work beginning sometime here before the end of the year.
Where's the parking availability?
So they will have parking on site. They'll have some parking on site. They'll have some subgrade parking, and then there will be some on site. But MJR also has multiple holdings throughout Lacey Woodland Square, and so they're taking advantage of a shared parking agreement across all their properties, where they can the residents will be able to park on their office lots during hours where the offices aren't in use. They can take advantage of some on-street parking. They've provided a study. They have more parking than at this point, even with construction of the apartments at build out, than they need across all their holdings.
That area has tremendous amount of parking.
It does. It
Well,
does
plus if
indeed.
they're going underground for
Yep,
something,
yep.
yeah.
But once you have,
Yeah,
we can
I'm
do during
trying to-
daytime, weekday.
Well, but that's where the underground parking.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And when residents, they're small units, they are required to show how they meet minimum parking requirements when they submit their land use application, and they did that with their cross parking agreements, and code allows it. The nearness of transit is something that they can use as well to show that they meet the minimum parking requirements. Also in Lacey Midtown, this is a brand new office conversion into apartments. It's 51 apartment units. This building just recently opened up. They had a grand opening in August. As of their opening day, which was a few weeks ago, they were 30% leased when they opened their doors.
I got a tour of that. It is cool.
It's pretty
what they
cool,
did,
isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
You would never know that was offices, ever.
Well, and what's unique about it is they use the existing building, and so the units inside, they're a little bit different than a brand new build where all the units are kind of the same. So there's some uniqueness to each of the units as well. That's actually pretty neat. And then we'll move a little bit further on our route down to South Sound Center, and this is the redevelopment of the Rite Aid. You've probably seen that going on. Their CDC is the property owner. They're remodeling, they have a tenant, specialty grocer, for 12,000 square feet of the building. There's an additional portion in the front, so it's gonna be divided into 2 tenant spaces across this portion of the building. The largest portion, 12,000 square feet, is for the specialty grocer. And we don't know if there's a tenant yet for the front of the building.
Do we have a name?
We don't have a name yet. Shh, not that I've heard out loud. Moving up across 15th Avenue, lots of residential development going on 15th Avenue, a mix of both single-family residential as well as multifamily residential. The first is Ventura Crossing. And this is a 53-unit, single-family detached development that includes an additional 16 townhouses on 12.5 acres. This was a project that was approved in Thurston County prior to our annexation of this parcel. It was approved in 2019. The preliminary plat was approved in 2019. It was annexed in 2024. Site construction is underway right now.
Again, parking,
They'll have to meet the requirements, so 2 parking spaces per single family unit is what the code would have required. So they'll have to have apartment, or they'll have to have parking for each single family house as well as the townhouses.
so dueling residents again for parking.
We have to we can only require the minimum, only require minimum parking.
Right?
And parking,
Thanks so much.
yeah, it's gonna change too. The state requirements regarding parking, or the state legislature has gotten into the business of parking. So what we can do as a jurisdiction is gonna additionally be restricted in the future
I
as
understand.
well. Yeah.
We should be rebelling against the state.
Also on 15th Avenue, immediately adjacent to Ventura Crossing, is the Canfield development. This is a sister project to one immediately across the street. I'm just gonna click to the next one. Cypress Williams Crossing. This is Sage Development, both of these. Let's see, this one is 72 units. Canfield is 72 units. And Sage is 200, or Williams Crossing is 252 apartment units, both Sage homes. They both have land use approval, and site development is underway for both of these projects as well. So lots going on 15th Avenue. Move a little bit further down 15th all the way up to Britton Parkway, and we have the Hickory. This is also a project that's been alive at the city since probably 2015, when we first started looking at development proposals for this site. It's immediately to the west of the Providence development. If you know where Providence is in Northeast Lacey, it's west of that. This is Olympia Orthopedic and Pacific Cataract and Laser Eye Institute. Under construction, nearly Pacific Cataract and Laser is nearly complete. These pictures are a couple weeks old, so it looks even different now than it did a few weeks ago when we went out and took those. This is the Residence Inn by Marriott at Britton Parkway. So this is just east of what I showed you. Pacific Cataract and Laser is this building here, and this is Olympia Orthopedic. This is the Residence Inn parcel. They received land use approval in about November of last year. We still have not received building permits for that, but they had been in even prior to last year with a land use approval that lapsed. They renewed their land use approval, and I believe have every intent to move forward with that new approval. Also at Britton Plaza, this parcel is what you see right here. This is, I think, Hot Works. It's a yoga studio and fitness gym that just opened about this month, I think. This is one of the last buildings at Britton Plaza. Britton Plaza has been well, it's not. There's this parcel here where we've received some interest on pre-subs. But it is getting nearly complete. This is a project that I think began construction probably in 2012 with McConey's and the Providence building. And it's been slowly building out since then, but it's really exciting to see that other building get constructed and users going in, out, additional users going in and out in the northeast area. We'll move to Hogan Bay Town Center. And again, these pictures are a couple weeks old and these already look different. I saw today that the picture on this picture here, this is Cooper's, and it actually opened, I think today or yesterday. So for those of us who live out in the northeast area, we have another new establishment, which I'm really excited about because I live out there. But that opened today. We also have, and I think this actually represents, I think maybe there are 2 suites left to fill at Hogan Bay Town Center. And again, Hogan Bay Town Center, I have the total commercial area. Let's see. I don't have the total square footage of commercial, but most of the commercial is built out, and they're now working on the residential portion, and that's 350 market rate multifamily units that are going to go out in the Hogan Bay Town Center area. That's those 2 parcels here. Phase 1 is under construction right now. And I think there's an additional floor on the multifamily building now versus a couple weeks ago when I took this picture.
Is that one of the neighborhood commercial districts?
This is not. This is the Hawkesbury Business District.
And I just want to tell you guys, I'm not stopping Sarah after each one of these projects. If you have a question
Oh, yes.
on a specific project, just signal and I'll get your words in.
Yep, for sure.
Oh, Tanya is here. She's on the Zoom on the public
Oh,
side. so
welcome, Tanya.
We'll bring her in when the things happen.
Next, just south of Hogan Bay Town are the Hogan Bay Hotels, and this is a project that came in about a year and a half ago for, it looks like about 200 rooms, 210 rooms across 2 hotels. We issued land use approval in November of last year. There's also a dedicated commercial parcel associated with this site. Here up in the corner, they'll have to get land use approval for construction of buildings on that site. We do have building permits in for the Homewood Suites, which is the building closest to Marvin Road. I lost my cursor, this building here. We have building permits that have been submitted and comments have been back to the applicant. And we're just waiting for a resubmittal on that.
What is it we're replacing there? Is it an empty lot?
It's an empty lot. Yes. Yep.
There was a forest there about 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I
That's
remember.
Oh, when I was a kid, yeah. So my question is, with all of this development, have any grocers started poking around on the north side of the freeway?
No.
Those residents out there have been begging for
I
that
know.
for years.
So the closest thing I have actually is this slide here to a grocer on the northeast. And this is Meridian Market, and I don't know how many of you might remember Meridian Market.
Yes.
Yeah. This project, the permits are actually ready to issue on this, and so they have not picked them up yet, is that correct?
They need to do a pre-con meeting.
Oh,
before they
okay,
know they're
so
ready. They just
they're
are waiting for that
waiting
pre-
on a pre-construction meeting, but we do expect to see this likely to break ground sometime in the pretty near future.
This looks vastly different than their application. It
Uh,
looks nothing. Completely different footprint, everything's different about it. Are they allowed to do that? Or do they have to submit a new application?
If they'd had to submit a new application, it would have had to go through a public process, but they
Correct.
probably submitted design review. I'm not familiar enough with what the original project looked like, but if it wasn't substantially changed, then it wouldn't have had to go through a new land use application.
Okay, the original had a couple pre-renders of a 7-Eleven side.
Yeah, and sometimes that happens with the initial land use application. They'll submit initial drawings and then resubmit during design review with more specific less spec looking buildings, or more specifically to meet the design review requirements that were part of the land use decision. So there could have been conditions for design review, or there were decisions for, or conditions for design review that they had to meet, and so they would
And this is-
submit those drawings.
And this is still intending to be a fueling station.
I think 4 fueling pumps is what,
Okay.
yes, so the 4 pumps.
Kind of hard to
here.
tell from the
It is,
pictures.
it
Is
is.
that 2-story or just,
It is a 2-story.
so that's
Yep.
combined office or?
It's commercial, so a market on the bottom and then commercial, probably office on top. I don't know that they have users for the 2nd story. It could be office space for the market itself. That's what it could be. Do you know? Yeah. Okay. And then another project that's been around for a while and we're excited to see moving again is the Homes on Martin building. And you all know this one as well. This was the crane that finally came down about, I don't know, June. Did it come down in June?
Later, July?
Yeah, June.
It was in July,
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
cause I
So,
remember coming home from Big Harbor one day and seeing them working on it.
yeah. So they're right now working on, I think, correcting the rebar and rebuilding some of the portions of the structure that needed to be rebuilt because it sat so long in the weather.
Is this the new developer?
It's a new developer.
That's my question.
Yes, yep, a new developer. Let's see.
I think we're just waiting on new submittal from them.
Yep, we're just waiting on a second submittal. I have, let's see, it's a 96 unit, 5-story apartment unit with, or apartment building with 74,000 square feet of mixed use on the bottom floor.
96 units in that?
Yeah, it's really long,
And notice how
long
much
and
parking.
narrow.
Right?
There's parking underneath this as well.
Right.
Does that count as the 5 stories, the underneath garage part?
It wouldn't,
No?
no.
That's really high for
It
Martin
is.
Way East.
It is,
5
I'm
stories.
It's gotta meet the, I don't know what, off the top of my head, what the minimum height is. I can find that out for you. And I don't believe that counts the structured parking, but maybe it does.
And the original plan was affordable. A portion set aside for affordable. Is that still the case or is it
I
now
don't,
luxury?
this one had affordable associated with it. So Gateway Residential, which is also out on Martin Way, is an apartment project that in order to get some bonus density did affordable,
Right,
a portion affordable. So
this was one of them.
that one is across the street. This one did energy, so in order to get the bonus density, they used high efficiency ductless heat system called City Multi. They incorporated some rooftop solar, electric bicycles for a shared bike program, electric vehicle charging stations. They're required to meet a minimum of LEED silver and then incorporate additional stormwater LID techniques in order to achieve that bonus density, but it doesn't look like it was affordable housing.
So this is now townhouse or condo?
It's
or rental?
apartments, it's apartments.
It's rental.
Yep, yep.
Oops. Think of all the electric bikes going down Martin Way East.
That's okay.
And then River Ridge High School modernization. So this is a project, a long-term project. I think it's probably in its 4th year of a 5-year project. The main school building is opening this year. They're removing a bunch of their portable fields. My daughter is a sophomore at River Ridge this year, so she's really excited to be moving out of portables, which this area, let's see, by the football field. We've all, for the last couple of years, and that's where she spent her freshman year. So she's excited to be moving out of portables into the main building. And then they're gonna begin working on the exterior improvements, the football field, the track, all the other exterior amenities as they move forward with this project. Heritage restoration commercial buildings. These are on Martin Way. We're gonna move down Martin Way just a little bit. These are on the site adjacent to Obi Credit Union and Ho Street. This is a parcel that has had land use approval for probably as long as I've been at the city, so a really long time. And they came in finally to get building permits, and let's see, who do we have? 2 new commercial buildings, a 3,500 square foot building and a 4,000 square foot building. We have a credit union and a spec commercial retail that are under construction. But they have a pretty nice design on these 2 buildings, pretty good modulation and articulation of the roof, lots of windows along Martin Way. It's nice to see that parcel developing.
What will it be used for? I'm sorry.
There's a credit union in one of the buildings and then we have spec commercial retail for the other
So it's
one.
gonna be across the OB. credit
Yes,
union.
yes.
So 2
yeah,
credit unions across from
Right,
each other.
right.
Okay. No unmet needs.
I think it-
Right.
Radius around credit
Yeah,
unions.
yeah.
Thanks. Financial, just like gas station.
A little further down Martin Way is another Martin Way mixed use project, and it's this parcel right here. And this is actually 3 commercial buildings, totaling 12,000 square feet of commercial on a 1.3 acre. And I believe we have submitted building permits applications for these projects as well. This property owner wanted to do, when they initially came in, they had ideas for kind of fast casual restaurants, kind of in the mod pizza style for one. That was a number of years ago that they talked specifically about mod, so I don't know that that's still moving forward, but really uses to serve all the multifamily that has grown up around that parcel over the last 10 years. But I think there's probably like 800 apartment units alone in these 2 complexes. And then Monarch Meadows, we have a couple, the next 2 are single family residential subdivisions. The developer is DR Horton. Monarch Meadows has preliminary plat approval, and they received that earlier this year, I think probably January of this year, and this is 30 acres. It's zoned low density, and there are 133 lots associated with this project. We don't have any civil drawings or grading permits, no permits other than the preliminary plat approval for this project.
And so this is behind the Rainier Vista.
It's behind River Ridge at the end of Ho
Okay,
Street.
all right.
Yep, at the end of Ho
Okay.
Street.
And got civils on that.
Oh, Mike got civils, we have civils on that. It's a DR Horton project. They do, once they get approval, their preliminary plat approval, they like to move quickly, so that actually doesn't surprise me. I call it their sister project, Morel Meadows. This is immediately across from the rack. This might be the one you're
This is the
thinking
old
of.
mushroom
Yeah, the mushroom farm. Yep, this received final plat approval actually just last week, and so we'll start seeing construction of homes by DR Horton on this parcel probably any day now, if not seeing foundations with it.
They've been working on the streets and utilities the
Yes.
last few months.
The
Exactly.
landscaping is really beautiful.
I was
I've been-
surprised. I usually see it the opposite way.
That's right. Did you see it too? Yeah,
All the trees are going in.
yeah.
Yeah, so this parcel, they had to save a
It
number,
looks thoughtful.
there were a number of, it wasn't white oaks, it's a different kind of oak, and I can't remember what it is. And there's an endangered oak habitat out on the site, so they did have to save a substantial amount of area in oak preservation as part of their preliminary plat. The next project immediately across the street from Morel Meadows is the Young Child and Family Center. This is the partnership between, I think, the YMCA and North Thurston Public Schools for a young child and family center. It's adjacent to Nisqually Middle School on Marvin Road. It is just about ready to receive its land use approval probably by the end of this week, which will hopefully help to facilitate submittal of construction drawings and building permits for this this is gonna be a daycare, there's gonna be a library, an early learning center. It's 50,000 square feet. Much anticipated for the community.
And this is the former baseball fields.
It is,
Yeah.
it is, Yep.
It's the city sponsored project.
So right now it's North Thurston School District and the YMCA. The city has some, they've talked a little bit about partnering with like some parks recreation facilities as well, but I don't believe the city is part of this partnership of this at this point.
So it's county.
It's North Thurston Public Schools and the YMCA.
So when you say YMCA, it's not going to be a
It's not.
YMCA, it's sponsored by them.
Right,
Okay.
right.
My understanding was that they were gonna be staffing it
Hmm.
and running the facilities inside is what I heard. I don't take it as truth.
No,
And that the ownership was gonna be through the school district.
The Olympian posted an article that the YMCA, I think it's on Plum Street, is actually shutting down. So
The YWCA? Oh, the YWCA is what I
YWCA, is
saw
that
too.
what it is?
yeah, that's on Union.
That's on
Okay.
you, yeah.
Yeah,
So I thought maybe that was a shift to here, but.
no.
And then finally, we're getting close to the end here. This is the Lodge Apartments. And this is on Carpenter Road, between Martin Way and Pacific. This is a development by, not Prime Locations, Hangers LLC, which is Jeff Powell, who's a longtime developer and real estate agent in the city. He, and his group also developed, the apartment complex just immediately to the north. This is the Lodge. This is a 94 unit apartment complex. All the buildings are under constructed. What's interesting about this, and I don't have a great picture of it, but they did keep, there's a historic home on this site. They call it the Panabode House. If you drive in there, you'll see it on the right-hand side. They've left that and are using it as their leasing office and commercial, or not commercial space, their like rec space for the apartment complex. But it's a pretty neat house. And it's nice that they kept that and were able to use that with their development.
So for those of you that aren't familiar, Panabode used to be a company.
Okay, thank you. I'm not.
Yeah, and what their specialty was, you buy a home kit from them. And they were sold as Panabode log homes. What it was milled logs that interlocked. So there wasn't round logs, it was
Oh,
milled
yeah.
logs that interlocked, yeah.
Hmm.
Kind of like a Lincoln log set.
Mhm. It's a great way to do it.
Did he?
It's really simple.
Yeah.
Secure.
And so that takes us to the end of our tour. And these are the links that will get sent out to you guys, and you can just put those, we'll send them to you, or you can click on them with your phone and it'll load them into Google Maps for you, and you can just start the tour. You will have to do 3 different routes because Google Maps only allows us to do 10 at a time. Shannon and I fought through Google Maps as hard as we could.
And run that same map.
And ultimately decided we couldn't break it. And so here we are with 3 different driving route links. Again, it'll start and end at City Hall, but it'll take you through every place we've looked at this evening. The only thing I will say, I'm not sure exactly how it handled getting to Monarch Meadows, which is that DR Horton subdivision that's adjacent to or behind River Ridge. If you wanted to, there's nothing to see there, but if you wanted to see the parcel, you can drive to the end of Hoe Street to check that out as well, just to see what we're looking at. in terms of
Outstanding
that.
job on this, by the way. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Nice.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
I'm glad. Again, the map, and then I'm happy to take any questions. Any other
final
questions you guys
for
might
Sarah?
have?
I'm a little bit bummed out because I have missed the other 2. I think I was out of town for one
Oh.
and I had the COVID for another of them.
Oh, the
I
bus
was
tour.
hoping this was my year.
Yeah. Yeah, the bus tour is much better, but you did really well here. Thank you.
Okay, good. We'll keep that in mind for next year and try and get it on the calendar earlier and get you out there to see some of these. We might take you to see, I mean, maybe Monarch Meadows will be under construction and you can actually see something going on, how to access that site and see some of these projects as they're under development.
Well, because I live on the north side, it really has been exciting to see that apartment come back to life.
Yeah.
With the crane gone. I
Oh,
mean, they are
yes.
really working every day there
Yes.
to
Yep.
make progress. It's
Yep.
nice to see.
I'm also excited about the ground level businesses going in with the apartment buildings. I saw that where at the Safeway at college and the senior housing there. It seems like the businesses are jamming. It seemed like it was vacant for a little bit, but they've really filled up. It's an active space and
Yeah,
it's great to see it
yes, it is good to see, and hopefully we'll have other developers see that and see that it's a kind of a viable option moving forward, especially as we're looking at infill and needing to.
So Tanya, since we just now got you promoted to panelist, I want to add, do you have any questions?
I don't, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys all.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right, Shannon, you're up to talk about development procedures.
Do it.
Nice. Okay, great. Well, hi, everybody. For those who I haven't met, my name is Shannon Vincent. I'm a senior project planner here at Lacey. I started about, I think, 5 months ago. The last time I was here was back in June. It was my first time, and we were doing an initial briefing for this update. So this kind of represents the actual work session where we get to go into more details about what we're actually working on, hear your guys' feedback, comments, concerns, things like that. So just as a general overview, this is the development procedures update. This is our staff working on creating a new title in the Lacey Municipal Code that will kind of house all of our rules and regulations relating to development procedures and application review and processing. With that, I will get started. Oops, let's do it in 2 places. Yeah, so more of the overview. Right now, our processes and procedures are currently in mostly 2 places. One is chapter 1 of the Development Guidelines and Public Works Standards Manual, and then scattered throughout Title 16 of the LMC. So staff, applicants, hearing examiners, any reviewing authority has to go to multiple locations to actually locate our processes and procedures. So the overall intention of the update is not only to consolidate them all in one place, but also to codify them so that our rules and regulations can actually be leaned against as part of the LMC. And we're also going to be restructuring the code to kind of improve the accessibility and the navigation as a user, and make it all formatted the same way. As a part of the update too, we're also doing some minor text revisions to kind of clarify and improve our current processes. Some of the existing provisions are outdated and can be modernized. Other areas, there are gaps that have been identified by our current planning staff. We need more clarity in this area, things like that. So today, the plan is to pretty much go through the high-level overview of what those changes are and hear your guys' feedback and give you an introduction really into what we're doing. So if I can hand you some of these to pass out, and I apologize to the people on Zoom. Right now, I am passing out a hard copy of the draft that was in the packet you received. The hard copy being passed out contains page numbers. And the online version does not. I'm so sorry. If there is any point where we refer back to the actual red line in the document, I'll do my best to get you to where it is. But it is 85 pages, so we'll do what we can. Another thing that I want to flag before we get started, and as you guys look through this document, is it's very long and there's a lot of red line, meaning things that are struck out, things that are underlined, and it looks like really major changes are taking place. Most of what this update is just a relocation and consolidation of existing provisions. Where things are struck out, mostly they have been just relocated to a different area for ease of reading and because it maybe makes more sense somewhere else. The actual changes that are taking place are going to be the things that we go over today. So I just wanted to preface that with, don't be frightened by the red.
The agenda packet has this that Aaron sent us, so the
Yeah.
people that on Zoom can follow.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it doesn't.
exactly. It just doesn't have
Your
the
agenda
page
packet doesn't have
numbers
Page numbers.
at the bottom of the document, just in
So what's
case.
going on? Okay.
Just in case we do have to go to, you'll see an example on page 16. You guys will get to page 16. They might have to catch up.
Okay.
But we will do our best. Okay, great. So an overview of the content that's proposed to be in the title is relocated chapters. Number one, chapter 1 from the Public Works Standards Manual, which has to do with development permit procedures and administration. Then the other 6 chapters that are proposed to be relocated are all being taken from Title 16 right now in the Lacey Municipal Code, which is everything related to zoning. So everything being taken out is some type of application or application review process that would make more sense in the development procedures title. We are also proposing 2 new chapters, one of which has to do with interpretations and amendments, and one of which has to do with temporary use permits. These are 2 things that have been identified by our staff or others as gaps in our current code or things that need approval pathways that we don't already have.
And it makes sense to move those out of LMC because it makes it much easier to amend as we go along and as technology changes, desires change and that sort of thing.
What would be the temporary use permits?
We will get to that in detail, but generally it's any temporary activity that would last less than a year. So things like portables, construction trailers, model homes, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I didn't mention this before, but what you're looking at in your draft 2 is what has been drafted as Title 11. This is kind of for ease of organization, so we can assign chapter numbers to things. This isn't the official title that it's going to be. Title 11 right now is reserved in the code, so it could be, but that's kind of up for further discussion with our legal team. But starting with revisions that are happening to chapter 1 of the Development Guidelines and Public Works Standards Manual. So chapter 1 is being divided into 5 different chapters under this proposed update. It is already segmented this way, just under section A, section B, section C. So we're pretty much reflecting the content that's already there. But within those 5 chapters, some of our first changes that we're going to be looking at is under definitions. The definition changes that we are proposing start on page 2 if you want to take a look. But it is pretty much taking the definitions that are in the Public Works Standards Manual now and the definitions that are in Title 16 that appear throughout this title and moving them all into one chapter. So any definition that's duplicative that's also going to be in Title 16 will be adopted by reference. Meaning if you look on page 2, for example, at dwelling, it just says see definition of dwelling. So the definition will actually live in Title 16. And if at any point we need to update definitions for our own purposes to meet upcoming legislation, we only have to update it in one place. That's kind of the goal. There are a few definitions that are proposed to be revised, not a lot. One, for example, is temporary use and storage trailer, 2 things that we don't have existing definitions for now. And through these updates, we would need them. There are a few that are existing, like conditional use, that are proposed to be revised. Just minor amendments. Conditional use definition has some process requirements in it, so we would be taking those out of the actual definition of the term and putting them into the chapter. Next change would be to the section related to application material. Our application material or the required material to be submitted with an application usually lives in the chapter for each individual application. So site plan review, variances, things like that. What we are proposing is to create an exhaustive list of any type of material that would be required to be submitted with an application, and then give staff or the enforcing officer, whoever the reviewing authority is, the power to waive any of them as needed. So we have an exhaustive list to fall back on if for some reason someone were to submit an application and we do need, renderings of nearby buildings to effectively review the application, we can ask that they be submitted with it, even though that wouldn't be a typical submission requirement.
Is this by electronic, where it's a list that they have to click off each time, or is it by a list and something could go underneath the table that they miss?
So the list would be within the code, and then typically on our application forms, we would have the requirements to be submitted. So it would be the baseline requirements, and then staff would just waive anything additional and say it's not required as a part of that submission. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if I understood your question.
We have application forms, so what Shannon's talking about, our requirements will be, like she said, in the chapter, identified as required unless waived by staff, and then for each of our applications, we have electronic versions of like our site plan review application, our wetland development permit application.
I see, so
general
it's in,
land use
it's,
application.
it's,
It'll let me-
it's
yes.
standardized and then
Yes,
the staff can wait.
yes,
Exactly.
yes.
That works better.
Yeah.
Basically,
Well,
it's
for
custom-
example, yeah, if,
It's
sorry, go ahead.
customized for every application.
That's excellent.
Yes, and so like we do pre-submission conferences, and at that pre-submission conference, staff can tell the applicant, these are the things that you need to submit. If an environmental checklist is required, it's not for every application, but at least it says that it's required in our code, and then staff has the ability to say per statute, it's not.
The reason I asked is I used to be builder and
Okay.
they'd come back at us and say, oh, you need this.
Yeah,
Well, the application time would have been the time to tell me.
right. And 5290 requirements, which we looked at last year, this is kind of a continuation of what we did with our chapter 1 stuff last year. That's essentially what it said, was that you can't ask for staff, you can't come back and ask for any additional documents that aren't on your application form. So this is just letting you know all the things that might be required up front, and if we can waive them, we will.
Okay.
That's
Can this submission be done entirely online? Because I know that a lot of the jurisdictions in the area require 16 by 29 prints be delivered in a certain quantity and all of these manual or physical productions of the.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, at least for land use permits, we require everything to be submitted.
okay, good,
Lacey was one of the first jurisdictions to do that.
because it's still an ongoing thorn.
Yeah. So I guess as someone who onboarded 5 months ago, it has been a very welcome change.
Yeah.
Really
Wonderful.
nice.
Good to hear.
So next change is going to be to our vesting protocols. This is not actually a major change, but more of an expansion of what we already do and writing out our actual process. So applications vest to the time that a complete application is filed, meaning if you submit your application for site plan review on August 27th, and you're down the line when we're reviewing it, we're still holding it to the standards in place on August 27th, even if they changed after that. So what we're doing is pretty much expanding that language to make it clear that that's our process. We're also establishing items that do not vest, which is typical for, I think, across jurisdictions, but it wasn't explicitly stated in our code before. That has to do with information given at pre-submission conferences is not vested. Things like impact fees are not vested. Those would be applied at the time that you're picking up your building permit. And along with that, establishing clear vesting standards when there are multiple applications submitted throughout the life of a project. So similar to what Sarah was saying in the presentation before, if you receive land use approval and then a year down the line, you submit construction permits, which obviously is typical, the construction permits would be held to a different vesting standard than the land use application. So pretty much just putting that all in writing. Does anybody have any questions about that before I move
Does
on?
that potentially create a conflict where you could be locked in a situation where your project's no longer viable because you have two different vested periods and the code could have changed between them? I don't expect it to happen, but I'm just curious, is that something that?
So the land use application will be vested for a certain amount of time, but building permits don't vest to the land use code. There's something that vests to the time you submit your building permit application. So you have to make sure your
Okay.
building is constructed to the codes in place at the time of your application.
Thank you.
I've never heard of that happening in Lacey.
Strange
Just
things happen.
to-
Yeah, no,
Let me assure you, yeah.
I will
It's a
say
good,
too,
it's a question though.
Yeah.
it's not in the bulleted list, but another item that we are including, just in case anybody does find themselves in a pickle, is an applicant can choose to waive their vesting and be held to the current standards. And another thing that we're introducing, and something that I think that we actually touched on more during our initial briefing than other items, is time limits for resubmittal. Right now, when staff requests additional information and stops the clock on a project, it can go on forever and ever and ever. Projects can stall and go on for years, and hypothetically, applicants could pick them up years down the line. They're vested to code that's completely out of date. So this would establish time limits for resubmitting that information. Right now, we are proposing 180 days within the request to resubmit. Applicants absolutely have the right and the authority to request an extension of that time if it's warranted by their project. So if they say 6 months isn't enough, there's no wetland biologist to do a report, I need a year, we'll say, okay, got it. As long as we have that in the record.
This would be after the application is submitted and deemed complete, correct?
This is after the application is submitted, deemed complete, and then it goes through its initial review, and we say, we need more.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
okay.
Next is changing our duration of approval. Most of our land use permit applications, excluding plats, have a duration of approval of 18 months. During that 18 months, we expect you to submit your construction and building permits. After further discussion with our current planning staff, we think it's appropriate to extend that duration of approval from 18 to 24 months. Right now, we allow a 6-month extension and we see a lot of applicants using it. So we figured why not just give them the 24 and then the opportunity to still extend another 6 months if needed. That's all I got on that one. Does anybody have any comments? Does that make sense? Great. And I think lastly, for this section is modernizing our noticing requirements within state law. We have a little bit of authority to choose how we deliver all of our public notices. So we are proposing that notices of application be posted on the city website as opposed to in the public newspaper. This would save us a lot of fees on posting and we would just direct direct applicants and citizens to just be continually checking. And along with that, we are proposing that notices of decision be provided via email to the applicant and any interested parties rather than in hard copy mail, which my first day here, I saw somebody folding up like hundreds of letters. I was like, oh no, so hopefully avoid that.
Good change.
Good change.
So that was it for the changes to the Public Works Standards Manual. Now we're moving into the changes for the chapters that are being relocated from Title 16. For all of the relocated chapters, some things you'll see consistency in the draft, or some things you'll see consistently in the draft is we are proposing to remove intent sections. We have often found that the intent sections can be at odds with the actual provisions or development regulations in place, and then can be contested at the time when somebody has to interpret a regulation. So as a department, we are moving away from intent sections. When we're doing this type of update, it's a good time just to get rid of the ones where we can. So you'll see a lot of intent sections have red lines through them. Those are not being replaced. We are also updating wording, capitalization, and code references just to be consistent with the current style guide. So you'll see a lot of changes related to that as well. And also, as I spoke to earlier, there are some sections that are going to be relocated or retitled for consistency. Doesn't mean they're gone forever. They're just in a different place or maybe with a different name. So just a little heads up I wanted to give before we move into changes. Starting with site plan review. We are proposing to revise a few subsections within the applicability section to clarify existing standards. Specifically, this is relating to intensification. Right now, our code requires that if a change of land use occurs and it results in intensification of that land use, site plan review is required. We don't have a definition for intensification, nor do we have any parameters for what it is. So we would be considering intensification to be a 10% increase or more in any measurable standard. So 10% increase in gross floor area, 10% increase in parking stalls, things like that would require site plan review. Next, we would be including some applicability subsection related to a 5290 requirement that flew under the radar and was effective at the end of last year. Which is that interior remodels that don't result in any additional dwelling units or upgrades in fire safety, is that it? Are exempt from site plan review. So that's kind of at odds with our current code. So we have to include those provisions per the state law. So you'll see that in there too.
How does that comply with permitting requirements for plumbing and electrical and other things?
That's completely separate. What they're saying is
I'm
if
doing an
you,
interior remodel, that's often gonna be part of it, is relocating outlets and things, so.
right, you still have to get those permits.
Yeah.
What they're saying is you don't have to sit for a site plan review
Gotcha,
meeting.
okay.
You don't have to do a whole land use.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the second change to the site plan review chapter is establishing express review criteria that actually address the site design and the compliance with applicable development regulations.
Trees. For the site plan, that comes in under trees as well, the existing trees and that they have to keep or.
Yeah, so typically, and Sarah, maybe you could jump into. Typically, the trees that are being retained on site are reviewed under a landscaping plan that's submitted with the site plan review application. One of the standards that we would be, or the review criteria that we would be introducing is whether there is adequate retention of the natural features of a site, which would include trees.
Which would be deeper in, that's why I'm asking. Under the, you'd have an initial review and then, of course, the arborist goes out there and
Mhm.
says, no, you need to
Yep.
retain these trees, and that would change quite a few things.
It could, so I think one of the things that we hope for in our pre-submittal process is that we talk about tree retention requirements for your project. So we have minimum tree per lot requirements, we have tree tract requirements. And so those are things we discussed at the pre-submission conference, and part of your complete application is a tree report. So we have the forester go out even prior to submitting your land use application and identifying areas where you have good pockets of trees or where you have single trees or opportunity for a tree tract on the site.
Great, so he is involved in the early process,
Yes.
excellent,
Yep, for sure.
thank you.
Next changes are to our variance chapter. The biggest change to this would be changing the thresholds for the reviewing authority of variances, so that more applications could be reviewed administratively. Right now in our code, staff can only review and approve a variance if it is a 10% or less reduction of a front or rear yard setback, which is a very specific situation in a very, very minor scope. So most or all variances have to go to hearing and follow a public process. So to reduce the amount of projects that have to go through the quasi judicial review, especially ones with really minor impacts, we are proposing to change the reviewing authority threshold so that more projects could be reviewed administratively. So with that, it would be a 25%, up to a 25% reduction in a measurable standard. Or a setback reduction that would result in complete avoidance of a regulated critical area. So, for example, in the setback reduction, the first scenario, I think it was in your packet, but if somebody were proposing to reduce a yard setback from 12 feet to 9 feet, that could be reviewed administratively because it's 25%. They're proposing to reduce it 12 to 6 feet, that would be quasi judicial because it would have greater impacts on the surrounding properties, your neighbors, and our development regulations in general. For the second example, for a site that is heavily constrained by, for example, like a wetland, and it has a maximum buffer, and there's really little buildable area, instead of impacting the buffer, folks could then choose to build outside of it and reduce setbacks, and staff could review those setback reductions if it meant that the critical area were being entirely avoided. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. We're also including a section defining which provisions are eligible for variances, mostly excluding certain areas. So stating that applicants can't apply for variances against our processes and procedures. They can't apply for variances against anything in the variance chapter, and they can't apply for variances to propose a use that would otherwise be prohibited in a zone. Those are the main ones. The variance criteria are also being reworded, but the intent is really not changing. Right now, our review criteria, like each one will contain 2. So we're pretty much just breaking them up so it's clear what standard we're reviewing them against. Does anybody have any questions about that before I move on?
So 11.08.050, we crossed off a land use hearings examiner shall not grant, and then went from not grant to may be granted if all of the findings are made.
This was just an example of one of those changes in wordings that we're trying to make. It achieves the same point, but it is positive rather than negative. It may be granted upon these findings. And because additional conditions can be placed upon a variance, I think it helps to say may be granted in case there are additional conditions that need to be imposed to make sure that you're achieving, public health, safety, welfare, things like that.
Okay, so it still leaves you open to not grant.
Yes, yeah, the hearing examiner still has the authority to deny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next is conditional use permits. I'm sure you've noticed a pattern of just a lot of review criteria. Our code is missing a lot of review criteria for our project permit applications. So it's pretty much just actually introducing what the criteria that we're measuring applications against, especially for projects like conditional use permits that go to hearing, having that listed for the public of saying, this is the standard, they are meeting it, yes or no. This is the standard, they are meeting it, yes or no. The criteria themselves are pretty simple. Specifically, is the proposal consistent with the comprehensive plan? Is it compatible with adjacent uses, or have they done enough to mitigate any potential noise impacts, glare impacts, things like that? Whether they're providing adequate landscaping, just general requirements that we're already reviewing against, but actually having it codified.
That's awesome.
I have a question
Yeah,
on that.
it is.
Yeah. Would they have to meet every one of those criteria?
Yes.
Okay. Was that the standard that the Meridian Market was scored against?
I am unfortunately not that familiar with Meridian Market. Everyone was laughing about it and I wasn't sure. Maybe
Yeah,
Derek
I mean, I would hope so. I think they weren't specifically outlined in the conditional use permit chapter at the time Meridian Market went through.
I
But one
remember
of the
it being
things.
in the footnotes of some of the
Yeah,
documents from the
yeah,
hearing.
Yeah,
And compatible with adjacent
Yes.
uses was a very important
Mhm.
point that the public spoke to
yes.
during that quasi judicial hearing. And, yeah, it's,
I recall reading one specific footnote which mentioned the hearings examiner said that this is a policy issue at the city. The city needs to address this because clearly the public is overwhelmingly against this project, but
right.
unless the policy changes, I have to rule as written, and as written, this is approved.
So I
this
don't
would
want
fix
to-
that? This would fix that?
Well, I
yeah?
think what this does is it provides better, clearer standards for us to review against so that we don't have that question in the future. It's that there
That's
aren't
what-
necessarily policy decisions that have to be made because of a decision that was issued, but
Thank
it's
you.
more clearly
That's
spelled
really
out.
helpful. Thank you for recalling that nuance. I'm sorry, Jeff?
I'm good. I just didn't want to revisit the Meridian.
No,
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Going to
I'm like, oh no.
This is going to generate questions, so I wanted to have a good understanding.
Yeah,
walking out of
no.
this meeting.
No, good question. Thank you.
Well, one of for the Meridian campus was also the traffic and lighting. So I see that you addressed the lighting, but the traffic. I know we're kind of handicapped in looking at traffic for our permit process. Should we include that as part of the conditional use permits?
So they'd
It already
still have
is,
to,
yeah.
they'd still have to address traffic impacts. And they do that through the SEPA process typically, but they still, any development that trips a certain number of, or generates a certain number of trips has to generate a traffic study to show how they're mitigating impacts. And so this doesn't change that requirement,
Okay, that's part of the
land use process.
land use process, okay. Thank you.
All right, we're getting there. Next changes were to our planned residential development chapter. For those who might be not familiar, planned residential developments are a type of plat, but it gives people more flexibility from our typical development regulations. So often they can deviate from what are normal lot sizes, normal required setbacks, but in turn, they have to provide some type of superior design or superior public benefit as opposed to a typical plat. That's the intention of these types of developments. Right now, that is not explicitly written in our code, except for in the intent section, which we are striking. So we are going to be establishing criteria to ensure that that design is superior and that the PRD provides a public benefit that would mitigate any adverse impacts from having that flexibility from the regulations that all of their neighbors are held to. We have examples in the proposed code for what a public benefit might be. An example is allowing or creating a substantial portion of affordable housing units or preservation of critical areas that would not otherwise be required to be maintained, things like that. another example of something that would be nice once you get to the hearing portion or, you know, where there's public comment and the examiner has to make a decision of, is this superior, yes or no? We have actual itemized items to fall back on in point two and say yes. The other change would be clarifying that the 30% of open space that is required in a PRD cannot be comprised of regulated critical areas. So this is to avoid developers doing what we would call doubling up of saying an area that already has to be set aside and be protected, we'll just also count that as a required open space. So making sure that they are doing both. Any questions on that before I move on? Comments? Next is development agreements. If you look at this chapter, you will see it is pretty much mostly struck through or redlined. But actually not much is changing. The text that we had for this chapter was vague and repetitive, I would say. So pretty much what we're doing is just clarifying what exactly we're asking for when an applicant submits a development agreement. Specifically, what code modifications they are allowed to request. And defining the content that would be required at the end once it's approved. So whether we need a phasing schedule, let's see, things like that. And lastly would be, again, establishing review criteria for the approval or denial of the application. Development agreements are decided on by council at the end. They are typically negotiated by staff. So the review criteria have a lot to do with whether there's public benefit long-term and whether there is a positive economic impact resulting from the PRD. Because these are the types of projects that are anticipated to take a very, very long time. We set aside, you know, utility capacity for them. We want to see that those changes are going to be made in a good way. So establishing that as a part of the review criteria.
So Spencer first.
I'd just like to say that in 11.12.020, that I would encourage everybody to look at the A, B, and C. I think there are excellent incentives to developers to invest. We're not just charging them fees arbitrarily, we're essentially giving them the opportunity to invest in the city through infrastructure means, and I think that's a fantastic way to incentivize them to do that.
Yeah, it's a
It
good
feels a lot
point.
less punitive.
Yeah. Elliot?
Well, I noticed that the HOA section of 11.10 was struck out. Homeowners Association means and incorporated, et cetera. It makes sense for the city to have HOAs in progress for the developments. Is that a non-requirement or?
Could you let me know what page you're on
Yeah,
really
where
quick?
were you at?
Page 57.
Oh.
I think I'm out of sync with you, sorry. Took me a while to read through it.
That's okay. Sorry if I'm going too fast. Feel free to slow
And
me down at
then
any point.
3/4 down the page,
Oh, so
or B.
yeah, these definitions were all relocated into our definitions chapter.
I see.
So HOA still will exist in this code. We just don't want definitions in the individual chapters. We want them to all live in one place. So anything that's struck out here has been relocated to pretty much the top of the title.
Now, are HOAs required or for large developments?
Yeah.
They are.
Yes. Yep, and it's really to make sure that we're taking care, accommodating stormwater maintenance, open space maintenance, because the city doesn't.
That was my worry.
maintain. Yeah.
I was
yeah.
worried it was struck out. I'm like, no.
Right. No, HOAs are still a requirement for plats.
Is
A lot of
there
people argue
number
that, but-
of housing units that trigger that requirement?
I think it really depends. So subdivisions, major subdivisions, which is 10 lots or better, all have to have a HOA. Short plats, I think it depends on what your like stormwater and open space facilities are, whether or not an HOA is gonna be required. Sometimes with just like a 2 or 3 lot short plat, it's not, something like that's not needed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I was curious, I was looking through this and I see like incentives for parks and for energy and different things, but I don't see any incentives for affordable housing. Is that in a separate place in this document?
Well, that was part of the density bonus that they get if they pledge so much affordable housing.
I didn't.
That was earlier.
Oh, okay.
That was 20 minutes ago.
But if you're referring to for the planned residential developments too, it is at the top of page 60, item 4.
And incentives for affordable housing too are something that we might see after adoption of the comp plan when we get into drafting development regulations for like middle housing, things of that nature.
So there, it's like it's a malleable number, maybe like more affordable units, better, okay.
Remember the comp plan, which is what we're working on, is a guideline. It's not the specific rules.
Right, thank you.
So last chapter that is proposed to be relocated, before I go into the 2 new chapters, and we can wrap this up, are rezones. We are proposing to create 2 separate rezone review processes based on whether a comprehensive plan amendment will be required. So right now, all rezones go to you, and then they go to city council. What we are proposing is that if a comprehensive plan amendment is not required for something like a project rezone, it would be reviewed with the project by the hearings examiner before moving to city council. And then any project or non-project requiring a comprehensive plan amendment would be still reviewed by planning commission and then city council. And that's just to ensure that these types of projects are reviewed by the appropriate authorities. For projects that are going to the hearing examiner, it makes sense that they would review the proposed rezone as well before it moves on to city council. Again, establishing decision criteria for those rezones to ensure that they have community value and that they're compatible with the surrounding uses properties.
Makes sense.
First new chapter is for interpretations and amendments. This is where we kind of fall out of the sequential order of the hard copy too. You have to go back to page 35. This would create a path for applicants to request code interpretations formally, which we don't currently have. Those code interpretations would be issued by the director of CED, and they would be added to an amendment docket, which would be reviewed annually by both planning commission and city council. So the idea here is that if there is a part of the code that is being contested or needs to be formally interpreted, the fact that we are creating interpretation that would be public facing, it would be posted to the city website once it's issued, and then that interpretation would be codified. So it would be consistently applied among staff, it would be consistently applied to projects, and we could move forward with actually making it a part of our code so that in the future, if any questions came up about it, the situation would be considered resolved. Are there any questions about that?
No, it seems very sensible.
Yes,
And then last-
live and learn, right?
Yeah, we got the
Totally.
official decision. Yes.
And last is the temporary use permits. So this would be establishing the actual permit type and review process for temporary activities that don't currently have a path for approval. I know that staff over the last few years, and especially recently, have run into this with people asking, I need to do this, but we don't actually have an appropriate way to review or approve it. So at least with this path, we can establish conditions, we can look at any impacts to surrounding properties and get them an approval for a specific length of time.
Right.
I had a concern for that because we went from a little more complicated zone map to my personal experience is oversimplified zone map. And it kind of excluded a lot of businesses that were existing for mixed use, et cetera. But how fast is that process for temporary activities? Temporary, I assume, as long as the business is in process, or were we talking 1 year or?
So the application approval would last up to 1 year. applicants could then request extensions of that approval for up to 5 years, but it would be in 1-year
And
increments.
how long would the process take? Because we had a couple here trying to get higher, they needed access to higher ceilings, but it wasn't zoned for that sort of activity. I don't remember.
That's a different, that was a different situation, so that wouldn't have been considered a temporary use, because they were looking for permanent space, and so this is, the temporary use provisions are specifically for somebody who wants to do something. South Puget Sound Community College, for example, they want to start a construction activity or an outside construction program. But they're not sure how successful it'll be, so they want to start kind of a pilot program, do some work outside. That would typically require like a full land use administrative review process, require storage of equipment that would need to go into a building that needs to be constructed to certain design standards, because they're not certain how successful their program is gonna be. They don't know that they want to go through that process and commit to a large storage building meeting certain design standards before knowing whether or not the program will be successful. So what they would like to do is have a temporary storage outside and have a temporary use. So this would be a pathway for them to get that approved for a certain amount of time till they see that their program is gonna be successful, and then they could move on to something more
Oh, I
permanent.
totally agree with
So-
the premise of having that ability, but I'm worried about the process of actually going through.
So it would
So is
be-
it a
yeah.
1 year, a 2 month, a 1 month process?
The
or-
process itself to get the approval,
Yes,
so it depends on the review. There's limited administrative review, which is a minor temporary use, something like, what did we say?
A model home,
A model
for
home,
example.
Yeah, or there are more that might have additional impacts that we would want to review. So it'd be probably a couple week process up to like a 6-week process to get your land use approval, your temporary use approval.
that
And
sounds
then you'd
much
be able
nicer.
to, yeah, then you'd be able to operate for up to 1 year with opportunities for extensions to maintain that temporary use for a certain period of time.
So people don't feel like they're fighting City Hall
Right,
and taking a
Right.
year to do so.
right, exactly, exactly.
Excellent, thank you.
Are there any last questions on that?
No.
That is all that I had. Any additional questions outside of what we went over, other things that came up, or anything you saw in the packet that I didn't go over?
I really like how you framed all of this, because it was
Yes.
one thing to scan the packet
It is-
for tonight, and the way you divided it up, pulled it all together.
I'm glad to hear that. It is a really overwhelming document to look at.
You can tell this is a lot of
Yeah.
work. Thank you so much.
So
Did a great
one of the things that has made me so proud to serve Lacey for so many years is that, you know, our development and building process has always been very transparent and pretty clear for the developers that are approaching the city. And I think this shows we continue to improve our processes to improve that clarity so that when somebody's walking in this front door, they pretty much know the answer they're gonna get before they ever hit the counter, which I think is excellent.
That's
So
excellent, yeah.
nice work, very nice work.
Yeah, this is really helpful for staff too, when we have very clear criteria. It makes it much easier for us to say, yes, you can do this, or no, you can't.
It just feels so
versus-
modern. It feels like
Yeah.
you're embracing efficiency, you're embracing modern tools.
Yes.
Yeah.
So next step, do you wanna?
Yeah, just to
Okay.
wrap it up.
Oh, yes.
We are proposing a public hearing for the updates on September 24th, so in about a month. And looking at adoption in early November.
That's the day you can't do it.
So I had asked Ryan to avoid that day for the
Yes.
public hearing
Okay.
because I want to be involved in it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna be on vacation at that time and I'm excited to present this to the public and give them the opportunity to speak. So if we could delay that or speed it up, either one, I would really appreciate it.
We probably
So
can't
two
speed it
Probably
up.
not the latter.
That and poor Tanya having to run another public hearing. So, yeah, if we could delay it till the next meeting, I genuinely would appreciate it because I really want to be part of it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
that's
our
all we
next,
got.
Our next meeting is September 10th. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna call the meeting adjourned.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.